All right, this is live. This is kind of weird. I'm not used to live streaming, but I'm going to be working on thumbnails. It is what is today? The 22nd. So it's the day 22 of the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. And I am working on thumbnails for the second volume of this, which is 2 stories. It's a comic that that graphic novel published through Marcosia. The first graphic novel came out like, oh my gosh, like a month ago, and now I am knee deep on thumbnailing page 76 for the sequel to that comic, which I'm hoping to get done in about like a year and a half. So I'm not going to be talking much. I'm guessing that like not a ton of people are going to show up on the chats since this is my first kind of solo stream. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of excited about getting some work done. So it might be kind of quiet and dull, but I thought it might be cool for anybody kind of interested in like process or anything like that to kind of see how I do my thing. So I have a couple of cameras set up. My buddy Corey Kerr kind of walked me through OBS, which I've never really used before. So bear with me. It's a new stream. And I'm in this weird part of the story where like basically like in the scripts, what I do is when I'm thumbnailing, I have my script, like this is the latest page that I'm working on. Kind of show you down here. And what I do is like block off the parts that I've already done. And so at this part in the script, I also like bend the page all weird, but at this part of the script, I'm going to be working on this section. And it's after this weird confrontation with a neighbor. So the main character just got accosted by his neighbor and like it was being held hostage in his apartment. And so now he's escaped the apartment. He's in his own apartment and kind of freaked out because his neighbor's like right across the way and they only have a winding staircase keeping them apart. He's called the police. And at this point, the police aren't really interested in kind of like anything he has to say. They think he's just making it up. They think it was just it wasn't a big deal. So now I'm basically working on this part where after talking to my wife, who was my fiance at the time, now it's just more of like calling my brother who's a cop. And I've been rethinking this third panel because it's a phone call. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to condense this and then get into like the next section. So this might be kind of boring and hopefully not. Hopefully it'll be entertaining or interesting for anyone who might be curious like how these things are done, how to do like really quick, crappy thumbnails. I'm spending a little more time on thumbnailing because in the first issue took me quite a few years to complete. And I frankly think if I get more detail worked out in the thumbnail stage, then I might actually be able to get the comic done quicker. But these things are such a long process. It's kind of crazy. So we'll see how this goes. But if anyone's watching or anything like that, feel free to chime in the chats and ask any questions you have. And I'll probably be going for honestly like an hour or two. Maybe not an hour. We'll see. My goal is to try to finish thumbnailing this whole page. And what I do is I work on my thumbnails and then I will post them to Instagram when I'm done. So yeah, let's see what we got here. Okay, the other thing that's hard about working on these things, so I work full-time as an art director, and the commute to where I work is about an hour and a half. And then I also have a 7-year-old son who I love very much. And so my routine in general is to wake up in the morning, commute for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on traffic, get to work as an art director for 8+ hours. And then when I get home, I usually want to kind of hang out with my son. I also try to do a workout routine. I have like a rowing machine and like some free weights and stuff. And so basically what I do is like I try to get that done while my son's getting a bath from his mom. And then once I'm done with that, it's like hang out with the kid, do bedtime. And then finally, around like 8:30 to 9 o'clock is when like a window opens up for me to work. And so that's kind of how it goes. So this next part, okay, I needed to say, so I'm moving that down. Initially, I had a little bit of body copy up here in this top panel. And like basically it was up here where I just erased it, but it was me calling my brother, and I was saying, I told him the whole story, but I realized I want to use this device. So let me see what I can do about that. I got an idea. And keep in mind, these are just loose roughs. Like I will probably end up reworking some of the panel layouts and stuff later on. But this is trying to block out all the beats and the rough panel layouts for the story. So let me see what I can do here. I kind of want to, but this is definitely not finished level work. I also have some freelance work for a client that I need to work on as well. And what I'm thinking with this stream is that this can be something where I just stream when I'm working on art. And then if people want to come hang out or have questions, they can. And if not, no worries. But it's a way to make content for my channel, and also hopefully entertain people who might want to see more art, because I realize a lot of the streams and things I've done on YouTube don't really show the process, or they do and they take forever to edit. So my hope is to do live streams, and we'll see how that goes. So let me know what you guys think if you do watch this later on in the comment section of the format and all that fun stuff, and then we'll see. But yeah, I didn't even think, I started playing with OBS today, and I thought it would just be this long process to figure out. Like this right here is my phone, this camera, and then this camera is my computer camera, and then OBS is streaming my my Photoshop, and so I think that's pretty cool. That can happen. So hopefully it's entertaining and interesting. And I'm also trying to get comfortable with streaming again. I used to do a lot of vlogs on YouTube, and like especially a lot of them on my commute to work. And one thing I was realizing today on my commute to work was I miss doing vlogs. And the downside of the commute vlogs is like I'm not really able to get art done, and then they have to be edited. And then editing time will cut into comic making time. So anyhow, let's see. Okay. So anyhow, with that, it can just be daunting to try to figure out like how I can make content, and also how can I like kind of document the 100 days. The first 21 days I've just been posting on Instagram like single screenshots and stuff of it, but my thought now is the idea that I can work on these thumbnails and like live stream when I do art, hopefully do it preferably like daily while I'm working on the 100 days, except for days where I do like the art casters or the 48-hour art check, and then we'll see where it goes, but I'm pretty excited. Okay, so we have here. I usually try to avoid doing a lot of talking heads because it's just visually like not the most exciting thing for people. But then there's these sequences where it's almost essential to have some talking heads. And so I'm trying to think of ways to keep this interesting. If you're ever working on comics and you're kind of working on like talking heads and stuff like that, like a sequence with like a long conversations and stuff like that, and you're trying to think of a way to block it out that's interesting, a good route to it is to like a good solution that can kind of help out with that is this thing called Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work. That's kind of like a explanation of how you can do this. I'm trying to think if like back when this happened there were landlines, and I just realized like probably not seeing much of that. So if when this happened were there landlines, that's something I should probably not. I should probably have this be a cell phone, but flip phones I think were kind of the thing, because this is from years back. Okay, cool. So got that blocked in. I also have this tendency to try to get like almost too precious with these things. And it's really important to not be too precious. Okay, cool. With thumbnails, thumbnails, it's the whole point's just to get like a rough gist of what you're wanting to convey. So here I'm blocking in his nose, phone conversation. Kind of excited about the idea of doing this corny like phone thing because I always loved that in like old romance comics. They'd have these like kind of lightning bolt panels when somebody was on the phone. And then I grew up comics I read as a kid that I got really connected to. The first ones were Spider-Man. And I do remember some pretty corny phone panels. So anytime I have an opportunity to do that, I might want to do that. So the thing I'm looking forward to the most out of this, though, is like hopefully I can start getting to like layout and like some stuff that's a bit quicker than these thumbnails. Not quicker. I'm kind of still getting used to the stream thing, but not quicker, but basically better, like more finished. because thumbnails are always I guess like 76 pages into thumbnailing. I'm kind of like aching to like get to like final layout and pencils and then inks and stuff like that. But the reason like I said, the reason I'm trying to kind of thumbnail a little more efficiently and less like noodly right now is I really do think having like a good map for where you're going, like when it comes to gathering photo reference and staging lighting and doing your layout and your grid and stuff like that, is way better to have like this rough map to work from. And it saves you a lot of time in the end run. So that's what I'm kind of hoping to do. We'll see how that goes. But so far, the journey of making this comic has been really interesting. It's technically my first published graphic novel. I finished one a couple years back that I haven't published. And I might, I'm not really sure with that. But Two Stories was my first published graphic novel. And so it's been a really interesting ride, like having a book you wrote and illustrated that, that I'm pretty into. Like I think, I dedicated quite a few years to, and having that out is like this weird experience. And trying to kind of balance the promotion of that with creating the next book is just like mind-boggling. It makes me really admire writers and cartoonists who've been at it for a long time. So I'm thinking closed. Okay. That's right. Trying to think of how I want to do my brother's nose here. Let's see. Just really quickly gonna take a look at. Okay, there we go. Huh. That's interesting. Okay. So I just took a quick peek at at my brother and was like, I think I kind of got it a little bit. So it's got like a very short haircut though. Okay. Thicker eyebrows. Okay. Cool. So the thing that I love about comics is like there's so much cool stuff you can do with the medium. The thing I think most people who make comics kind of dislike about comics is they take forever to make. So so like even this in my head, like what I've done so far would not occupy 20 minutes. And these are just thumbnails. Like this isn't finished work. So it's like a lot of time goes into these things, at least for me, and might be because I'm not like the quickest artist alive. But it's also kind of cool. Just in the sense that you can make a lot of stuff on your own that you can't do without like a giant crew of people. But yeah, so I think that'll work. That actually kind of works. Let's see. Where's he gonna be? I think, yeah, at this time. My couch. A bit more modern couch. Let's see. So yeah, getting there. This will take a while. So something that I've been thinking about lately is how am I balancing self-promoting this comic with press releases? So like this first book, Two Stories, which I'll show again. That's the first book that in the series. Like this thing, I've been sending out press releases, and I had been really good about it for like the first half a month that the book was out, and up to like the month before the pre-release. And as a result, like I did end up getting some bites, and there were some news articles, and then a couple podcasts that I really like and listen to had me on as a guest. And so like, and these were good things, and they were helping the books move. In the time of COVID, it's tough because a lot of the traditional ways to market an indie comic are kind of out the window. And so you can't even really go direct to stores and kind of do signings and stuff because, at least in California, like nobody's open anymore. So, and a lot of those stores are like really risk averse because they want to, they don't want to incur like some crazy cost they can't afford. So anyhow, and then I'm a fairly political animal in the sense of like I pay attention to politics, and the last 4 years have been rough and kind of insane. And so there was a lot of tension, especially after the Capitol got, basically there was an insurrection in the U.S. And so that was kind of tense and caused me to kind of lose my groove a little bit. I shouldn't say it caused me to lose my groove in creating, but it just kind of created this like down, like it just created a tough situation where it's hard to focus and kind of be in the zone. And with comics and art, it's all about momentum. So while I've kept since the first, I've been really good at actually, like, honestly, for like the last 70 days or so, I've been really good with like keeping my pace and not skipping days when working on comics or working out. But I did drop the ball on the press releases, and so I'm starting to think that's something I might have to do on weekends or something. I don't know. So so that's been going on. I'm pretty happy with this crazy panel. I'm wondering if I have sized this window to where you guys can see it, because I'm kind of thinking maybe there's a way. to do this where I can size it a little bit so you guys can see a little bit more of the, let's see if that works. Because I don't want people like watching this to not really be able to watch what I'm working on. So, okay, so hopefully that'll work a little better. So that's one panel down. Then I might do second panel. And this is where, so right here I'm telling the whole story. Second one is going to be wondering if I should cross the line of action to make it seem like this conversation's gone a little while. I'm thinking so. So the line of action, is like in a scene like this, even if you have like a split screen, I have my character on the left and my character on the right. Technically, the next panel should have them on the left and on the right. And I shouldn't flip what's left and right unless I visually show the person on the left like walk over to the right to kind of make that happen. So hopefully that makes sense. This is my first stream, so if it doesn't make sense, I don't know. Leave me a comment. So hopefully it's not super boring. But I am excited about starting this thing. So anyhow, I am pleased with the fact that we have like a new person in the office, and it's made me feel like I have a weight off my shoulders. But it is always a daunting task, like kind of finding time to do these things, and like trying to knock out a second book in like way over half the amount of time as I did the first. But I'm feeling pretty good about the progress. I just also need to not drop the ball on promoting the first book. And that's been an interesting experience because like it's been a while since I've done that. So anyhow, let's see. All right. So I'm going to pull, let's see. Okay. Yep, I'm going to cross the line. Hey, Chris Kawagua in the chats showing up. What's up, Chris? I'm just working on comics, and I'm going to start live streaming a bit whenever I'm working on them. So I figure that way I can kind of keep people company when they're working on comics or working on stuff. And I will say, yeah, so it's like Chris is asking if it's a solo Artcasters. So Chris, since you're just joining, I am going to try to do live streams on nights where I'm working on my thumbnails and working on my 100 days, because I realize like I'm kind of up working anyway. And then also I just figured out OBS. So I figured out how to make the mechanics of this work where I can show what I'm working on and also stream my face and like another camera. So it's also kind of a test run, but yeah, like, I don't know. I just thought lately I've been watching, some of those like video game streams and on like Twitch and really enjoying them. And I was realizing like it would be cool, I think, to kind of start doing an art stream. Yeah. So, yeah, might as well. Yeah. Good motivation for you. Cool. Yeah. And Chris, honestly, like I, if anybody ever wants to hop on these things, you're welcome to. So let me know. I'll send you a link. But message me on Facebook if you want. I'll pop you a link to the stream. But yeah, I figure it's a way to kind of work and get some thoughts out, create some content, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's not super boring, because I will not be as on point as I am on like Artcasters or something, because I'm going to be working. So, Fritz, I'm kind of curious, dude. Have you ever done this thing with like here, I'll show the panel that's finished, like the phone conversations with the lightning bolt separation thing in comics yet? I'm curious. Anyhow, if you hear that, let me know. Because like I just think that's such a cool framing device, for for comics. I don't know. So yeah, like I love the idea of like, nice. Oh, okay, you never have. Yeah, I love the idea of the classic phone. I don't know where it got stuck in my head. I do think it was Spider-Man. I don't know if I'm wrong, but I'm in my head. It seems like it was in Spider-Man, like comics, like when he was talking to Mary Jane or something. They do these kind of bubbly, poppy phone things. But that might also just be my memory being wrong. I don't know. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, when the spider's the phone cord. I remember seeing those. Like, they'd even do like a full page where you'd have the phone cord kind of spinning around like the entire page to make like a different panel layout. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I was just trying to kind of, originally I kind of wanted this to be a rotary phone, but then I realized like the time that this is involved wouldn't have a rotary phone. Or I could do like a McFarlane panel. I'm just kidding. But the McFarlane panels where they have like, it'll be like a, what are those? And then the next panel's like, sorry, it'll be something like that, right? It's like, oh my gosh, what are those? And then it zooms out and it's like, it's a fly. Like, then you have like your weird fly face or whatever. And then it zooms out and it's like, it's a fly. And then it continues to just zoom out until it's like, you finally see it's like a fly and a cup of coffee. And then it zooms from the coffee. Anyhow, whatever. I always did like those though. They do the crazy. Okay, back to focusing. So I told him the whole story is this, and then okay, here we go. Now I'm crossing the line, so I'm gonna have this dude, and I'm gonna have him in this new blank panel. And I need to get that type in there. Okay, here we go. Yeah, the one thing that that like, I don't know if I'm being too meticulous with this, but it is bumming me out that these thumbnails are taking so long. But I can't help but hold to the theory that this is going to save time in the long term. Where he told you. So this is actually might be like a good tip. Chris doesn't need to hear this because he's been like killing it and doing comics forever. But when I was younger, and probably when Chris was younger too, I'm sure he made this error too. But I used to, when I was doing like the blocking out for a comic, I wouldn't consider the type. And so like my first few attempts at a comic seriously was like trying to like reframe art to where the like the type and the dialogue and stuff could fit, rather than having the dialogue first and then being able to fit the art around it. So anyhow, from having done that a couple times, where it was just like a nightmare, and then I ended up having to delete like a bunch of art that I already drew that ended up being behind word bubbles or something. That's one of the reasons, like when I'm blocking out or thumbnailing, I'm like, get that type in now, like as opposed to kind of estimating it, and then when I compose the page, I'll have it there. But yeah, Chris just said doing a lot of heavy lifting at this stage. I think the hardest part is getting past the blank page. Yeah, it's, man, blank page is the blank page is a beast, man. But the neat thing is, like, once you kind of crack open from the blank page, it's hard. It's either one or the other, I've noticed, where it's like you have too many things you want to do, and not enough pages, or you have the blank page. It's like it's either too full of a page or a blank page. I rarely find it like, so like for me, like one of the hard things about having to do this is there's like 3 book ideas that I really want to get to. And these things take so long. It's like, I may not get to all of them, yeah, but yeah, it's pretty challenging to kind of, I think, for us to, as artists, like try to have output and like stay engaged and interested. But yeah, the thing I'm looking forward to with this method I'm thinking about using, hopefully I don't break it, because I'm gonna, like, the downside of using this method is the way I was doing the last book. I would do like thumbnails, and then I'd go from thumbnails like for one page to like photo references for the page, and type layout for the page, and then pencils, and then inks, and then I'd move on to the next page. So there's a part of me that, like, because inking's so fun and getting that finish is so fun, it's been interesting having to fight that and being like, I have to kind of think of this more of like almost like storyboarding, where it's like I need to keep this fairly loose and just block out what I need. And then the one thing I'm looking forward to, if I can hold that pace, is by doing that, like, then I end up with all the fun at the end, because like inking is so fun. And like, I love hand inking and traditionally inking, which is another reason I wanted to figure out OBS, right? Because of this, like I can use this camera, which is just my phone, but I can use that to kind of stream drawing too, like, so when I'm inking and stuff like that. But I'm excited about that. Like, if I can get through, what'll eventually be like 120 probably pages of pencils and layout and all that boring, like, not boring, but like that work, then I'll get the dessert of like just inking for like half a year, just straight, which I think will be really exciting. So, let me see here. Got something on. Okay. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about kind of getting this thing done. The one thing that's tough, there's a couple things that are tough right now. I mean, like, the pandemic thing is a little rough with, like, I'm a stay-at-home kind of work on comics kind of guy, and Chris knows that. Like, he knows I'm a bit of a curmudgeon. But man, I miss being able to kind of like get energy from other people, like just kind of something about like when you're like in person hanging out with somebody, that like that energy it's hard to explain, but it's like you can kind of get it from like streaming or hanging out online, but it's like I do miss like being able to just go to like a bookstore and just hear people or like um thanks Chris. Like Chris said, I'm at a good pace. Thank you. I hope so, man. Yeah, it's it's an interesting thing. I'm happy with the pacing of it so far. So we'll see if it kind of stays there. Okay, this one can be like a head. Let's try like a maybe down. There we go. So we'll do that angle. Okay, but I do want to cross the line here. So, yeah, Chris was saying he misses drawing. Yeah, I miss drawing at cafes too. Actually, it's funny. What was that coffee shop we used to hang out at a little bit in Long Beach? It's really cool. Kind of like an artsy coffee shop. Maybe you'd remember, Chris. I can't remember the name of it. But it was pretty cool for like people watching and just kind of like actually honestly, I think you and I used to hang out there when I was working on Jacob's apartment pages, and you were working on, I think, the first Sunless Circus, maybe? Can't remember. So anyhow, if anyone's watching this after the fact, Chris Cawagua has a rad comic. Yeah, Viente. Yeah, there we go. Viente y Agua and Portfolios. I think we hung out at both. But yeah, so Chris has a great comic called The Sunless Circus, and it's a whole series that are on his website. And like it's just like really cool. Kind of like the first story is like, what would you do? Oh my goodness, Chris could pitch it better, but it's basically like a robot that doesn't want to become what society is kind of pushing on him. I just realized I'm drawing me in the panel. This is where I need to get more used to streaming. Actually, that was a kind of yeah. So it's so the premise is like a robot wants to become an accountant, and that's kind of him going against the grain, and so he wants to leave a circus so he can become an accountant, which I thought was brilliant. And then it just goes into all these different storylines of all the different characters in the circus, and it's just really cool. It's like, yeah. Chris was like, default face when we draw ourselves. Totally, dude. Totally. And it's funny because I'm like, half of it's from streaming and kind of learning this format and trying to get used to kind of vlogging again, or or kind of doing this solo. And then the other half is just from like, man, it's I'm just exhausted from work. It's a crazy thing we do. When we're working on art, and just kind of, but the funny thing is, I tried like for a good year or two to just do like the day job art and paid art, and that was it, and kind of not do comics. And I've grown to realize like I just can't not do comics. Like if I'm not working on personal projects, I just don't personally feel like I'm not feeding that, like the artistic side of me. Okay. Now suddenly I changed the hairline. Okay. Damage control done. Okay. I'm gonna have to figure out. Okay. So, I have been listening to this. I don't know, Chris, if you're still there, but it's like there's this show that I think you'd really dig. It's called Bananas for Bonanza. You might already be like listening to it, but it's like a spinoff on some comedy Bang Bang characters, and so it's like all these fake characters, kind of comedians that are walking you through they're basically going point by point through Bonanza episodes, but like now I'm blanking out on the character's name, but he's like a cowboy poet laureate of the West. He's like one of the bigger characters on Comedy Bang Bang, and he's been on Letterman and stuff too, doing like the same shtick, same character. And it is like the funniest thing, because he's one of the funniest like improvisers on Comedy Bang Bang, but he so anyhow, like the main guy who's doing it, his backstory is that he's like this cowboy laureate of the West who also happens to be a monster hunter, and he just happens to kind of run into monsters all the time that he has to kill. But it turns out like most of what he defines as like a Frankenstein or a vampire or something like that are like just people he doesn't like. And so if someone like displeases him, he'll be like, "You're a werewolf," and like have to kill him. So anyhow, it's a funny bit, but his character, and then the guy who ran Super Ego, who also like runs Conan O'Brien's podcast, plays another cowboy character. And then it also has man, I'm blanking out on all fronts today, but a female comedian that Chris, you and I like, and I'm forgetting her name. She's brilliant. She did like stand up for her parents at her parents' house. But anyhow, she plays like this like wacky religious zealot kind of lady who, so it's just a funny show, and like the dynamics really funny, but very like only if you're into like improv and stuff. Yeah, I could imagine. Oh, Maria Bamford. Thank you, Chris. I knew you would help me out with that, because like we both like Bamford a lot. She's one of the funniest comedians alive. But anyhow, she's on that show. But her character on it is hilarious because she's on it as like this really crazy religious nut who has like a website called Lot's Daughters, which is like, and it makes like pillows, but they're like pillows with like really super disturbing Bible verses, and it's just funny. But she's also like just sounds like this kind of crazy. It's almost like when she does like her mom's voice, like when she's doing her stand up, it's like that kind of voice, which Bamford's like so good at doing. But I think you'd dig it. Okay, so let's see here. I think I need a mouth here. No. So then, yeah. So Chris, you were talking about Lady Dynamite, and it's like yeah, it's. I did not get to see the whole thing. I saw like the first episode. Was the rest of it good? Because that's the one Bamford thing I missed, which I shouldn't have, because I love her stand up and stuff. So and And from what I remember, the show was pretty good. It was like it's kind of perfectly perfectly Bamford-ish in the way it's set up, because it was awkward and strange, but like great. Yeah, it's on Netflix. I need to so I need to watch the rest, because I think I ended up getting like caught in another Netflix binge or something and kind of dropped the ball on it. That might not be a bad thing to binge tomorrow. Yeah, fittingly awkward and wacky. Yeah, it's so good. So yeah, so that's one thing I've been really enjoying. That kind of has been my jam lately. And then let's see. Okay, cool. Okay, I got the other dialogue sequence. So I got, every time I'm like stopping and pausing, it's because I'm like trying to find where I'm at on the. This is probably like to me, like this is the stage of comics that it's kind of fun, but it's also like one of the more labor intensive, just to like block things out and figure out where everything's going to go, and how to make it flow and and whatnot. Let's see. So you from leaving. Okay, there we go. So then there's more dialogue over here. I'm also gonna, this is one of the reasons I like doing these quick kind of loose digital roughs, is I can cheat a little bit by doing something like this, where I'm like, size that down a little bit. But I do feel like if I have another page that's mostly floating heads, I might have to be fired from comics. So I've been doing a lot of floating heads. So I need to break the floating head. I think this might be floating head max by this last. So this will probably be my last floating head for a while. Oh, dude. Yeah. Which Dark Horse book was that? Because you also worked on the layouts for oh my gosh, Blade Runner, like the sequel book. Was that the one you're talking about, or is this a new, or was this another book? I feel like you worked on like Deadpool or something too. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I know you did the Deadpool coloring book, but I'm kind of curious. Chris, remind me what the layouts were for. But yeah, layouts are like, it's weird. It's like I almost feel like I don't like the idea of working with writers on comics that aren't me, because the pay in comics is traditionally not super great. Oh, there it is. Critical Role Vox Machina Origins. I remember seeing that. Yeah, but the one way I think it works with that is like if a writer in comics actually did the layouts, and this is indies, but it's like with indies, I think if you were collaborating with somebody, they were writing and you're doing the art, if they actually blocked out all the layouts and worked out all the page sequences, and did it okay, like where it was translatable, I could see where that might be like a more fun collaboration than just, somebody writing and then you having to do the whole bulk of the work, Yeah, but I mean, like it's also really cool that you did some stuff for Dark Horse. It's a badass company. It's a weird thing too, because yeah, I don't know how I feel about doing other people's comics. Yeah, Chris, I had heard that about Alan Moore. Did he do that with Gibbons though? because I feel like Gibbons did a crap load of that. But maybe I'm wrong. Like I need to look into it. But I feel like From Hell, Gibbons was like kind of almost like a collaborator with that, but maybe not From Hell. Did I just say From Hell? Watchmen. I feel like with Watchmen, that was more of a collaboration. But I kind of want to know if like more. I do think from what I've read, Moore gives like a crap load of description in his scripts of like what the pages are going to look like. But I'm not sure if he actually like blocks them out. I don't know. I am comic illiterate sometimes with some stuff. Okay. Oh, okay. So it was for Gibbons. Okay, interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out because yeah, Gibbons is like just that guy. That whole book, I reread it like once every 5 years or 6 years just to like remind myself of how like what's possible in comics. But that's one of those ones where it's like I can't get like super into it, like, and not in a negative way. It's almost like before I read a Chris Ware thing where I have to like block out like a good week to just kind of reset and be like, there's still a point to making stuff. I feel like there's comics like Watchmen that are just so perfect and well done that it's like it's hard to it's almost hard to revisit too often. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, that must have been an interesting gig though, like blocking out like layouts for a Dark Horse book. So do they usually do that, like have someone specifically to do layouts, and by layouts are you doing kind of thumbs or is it like more like design layouts? Like I'm curious to know kind of more about that, because I may not even be aware of like what goes behind that, but it sounds really cool. Yeah, because that could be kind of interesting. But I do feel like if you're doing, I don't know, it's almost like an animatic or something, like having a really good animatic when you're doing animation is really cool, because a lot of the kind of basic work is there in the raw, in the animatic, and then like I do think that kind of helps streamline the process and like kind of puts a little less of the work on the people making it. So right here I'm going to have, yeah, okay, let's see. Okay, and now I need more type. So it's going to be so it's a weird idea, like the idea of doing this stream, and I'm not sure how it'll work, but like I kind of figure, like I said, if I'm up and I'm working on comics, I'd imagine there's going to be friends and people I know are up working on stuff. So it might be kind of a nice thing. And then I think as I get more of the flow of it, I like that. Not usual. I think I came in to help out a new penciler. Nice. That's kind of cool. I think that's cool that I think that's cool. I could also see that being super helpful because like Chris, I've seen you work and you're pretty quick, man. And pretty accurate, like with blocking stuff out. So I could imagine that being like super helpful. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking we're at an hour. Wow, that's crazy. Thinking I'm gonna probably keep cracking till I get these last panels going, whether I like it or not. Um, I usually not sure I want to do it again though. Yeah, right. Rather work on my own comics if I'm gonna do layouts. Isn't it? I don't know. I feel kind of the same way, where I'm like, um, just yeah, like I think especially as we start getting older, it's like the value of time. It, um, when it comes to like something like that, it's just it's hard, but it could be valuable, you know. Um, but I want to see Chris. I'd like to see you work on comics. Kind of happy when people are working on anything, but I'm always biased to comics. It's like a strange drug habit that you want everyone to do. So this has been a weird part to block out and lay out too, because it's just like such a tense, like like a it's kind of a tense story. And then the way I kind of pace it, I'm trying to kind of build a lot of tension. Um, and like whereas like uh, the first two stories book like kind of builds tension, and then there's like a little bit of respite with the kind of more cartoony sections of the book. Um, this one, because it's like kind of close to the climax, it's like just tension, 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 and um, uh, yeah, do this whole story, yeah. So, um, yeah, yeah, that's kind of the goal. So it's been really interesting, like where the story is, it's, but it's also like there's parts when I'm working on it where I'm like I kind of feel bad for anyone reading it at this point, because it's a very tense part of the story. But there will be resolution, um, and it's also kind of fun to write too in a weird way. So it's hard to structure that kind of stuff though, you know, where it's like I don't want to overfill somebody's, you know, with too much tension. Let's see here. But it is interesting. I definitely how to through writing this, it's been interesting because I've been thinking a lot about Long Beach and Huntington too, and it's I actually do miss it. I don't miss crazy neighbors. um, oh, speaking of crazy neighbors, okay, this is a side story, but I'm working on comics, so bear with me. But it's an interesting, weird story. So I have this neighbor who, like, he's like a dude who's always flown like an American flag at the front of his house, like just a big American flag. And there's a couple neighbors who have them, right? Like big American flags and cool, whatever. But throughout the like last 4 years, he's had a Trump yard sign and a Trump flag, and the Trump flag is printed on the back of the American flag. And my wife and I cracked up about that because it was like, first off, like it. I mean, like if you're like really patriotic and stuff, there's like a flag code. You're not supposed to like print on the back of a U.S. flag. So that just seemed really strange. But then the other thing was originally the one he bought was like when the flag was hung correctly, Trump's name was upside down. So that was kind of weird. And that lasted for like a week, where it was like this upside down Trump flag. And then, so anyhow, the story gets fairly interesting just from like an observation of a neighbor. But so then, like, after the Capitol stuff, like, and all the way up to the inauguration, like, he had these Trump things. He ended up getting a new Trump flag. So he had a US flag and then a Trump flag that wasn't printed the wrong way on the flag. So he was forced into this conundrum of like, which one do I hang right side up and which one upside down? So now he's got two flags, one that's a Trump flag and a US flag. And then after the inauguration, everything disappears and he's hanging just a US flag upside down, like straight outside of his house. And the dude's really quiet, and I don't know, kind of creeps me out. But it's just like this upside down US flag just flying every so weird neighbors are everywhere, but I found that one interesting because I don't know, it just seemed weird because it's like, if you're patriotic, do you really want to hang a flag upside down? I don't know. It just seemed interesting. Yeah, let's see here. Yeah, it was totally a poetic conundrum. But it's baffling now because it's like I said, just a straight up upside down flag with no Trump or anything, just upside down flag. So I guess maybe next week I can introduce him to punk rock. That would be cool. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is like, maybe it's I don't know, but I feel bad for the guy too. I can imagine, like, I was thinking about this and I was realizing, like, a lot of people actually really believe some kind of crazy things about, like, that I don't agree with, right? Like, it's just kind of weird, non-factual things. But if I actually thought a lot of those things were fact, I might be like freaked out too. Like, if because I know, like, some of the Q stuff, it's like they actually think, some really weird, nutty things. But if you actually believed those were real, like, maybe you would flip out and be like, this is not my country. I'm hanging my flag upside down. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. Hope the best for him. Let's see here. Okay. Okay, breaking the floating heads here. And do. Okay. That's what I was trying to figure out for a second there, was like, what do I do to break the floating heads? But yeah, the one thing I was thinking about, and it's like, I haven't hung any flag, because I'm just not like a flag on the front of my house kind of guy. And I believe I'm fairly patriotic, but it's like, I just don't. Yeah, that's true. Like, the whole savior prophecy not coming true, like, that's got to be like, and then you're kind of, if people actually believe that, and then that reality is like broken, then it's like they're faced with a conundrum where it's like, do I accept, like, I'm just trying to kind of put myself in their shoes, but it's like, you either have to, like, kind of accept that you've been lied to and the ramifications of that, but you, like, followed a lie to the point where you were willing to, like, commit, like, insurrection to do it. And so that's like that's a hard thing for people to do. People have enough trouble, like, admitting when they're wrong or they make a mistake. But then, or you double down. And if you double down at that point, it's like, you're digging your heels in, like, no. Like, there's, I don't know. It's been really fascinating, but also like highly disturbing. So I'm kind of thankful that it's not like a huge, I don't know, thing. Let's see here. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I'm sure they've lost friends to this too. Some leaders in Q circles. Let's get back to our lives. So let's hope for the best. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny too because it also fascinates me. Well, I mean, Chris, you know this, but it's like I've always been fascinated by like cults, like, and kind of like how people fall into them, and like just like one of the books I want to write. Um, well, anyhow, so uh, I've always been kind of fascinated by those things, um, and to see it in like real time, like this whole thing grow, and sort of like see people who like lost, you know, their sense of reality. It's been really enlightening. Um, it also makes me empathize with like the past, because I've been thinking about it too, like where like I think there's this tendency for us to sometimes be like, well, that society was crazy, like, or that era in time was crazy, like that would never happen now. And I think it's been a really fascinating reminder of like just how stuff happens. Like you get this window into like how things in history that just seemed crazy far fetched. Like, why would anyone, those kind of questions where you see something in history and you're just like, why would anyone fall for that? Like, why would anyone follow that? And, I think we've just witnessed it where it's like this gradual erosion. It's like you give a little truth here, you give up on a little truth here. And then the next thing you know, you're like thinking, people are like drinking adrenochrome shakes or something, like it's just crazy. But it's not like, it's weird. It's like, uh, it's just been fascinating. That's all, but I do feel bad for anybody who like I feel bad for anybody who gets sucked into like a system that makes them kind of lose track of reality and sacrifice things that I don't know. It's, it's a weird one. But anyhow, trying not to think too heavily on it because but it's been fascinating. It's been like a case study, just in like history can repeat. People are really vulnerable. Um, yeah, I agree, Chris. There needs to be a bridge back. I agree. For some, for some of those people, for sure. I do think, um, people. I think that like, I think that trying to think of a way to put this. So I think sometimes the biggest thing anyone can do in life is just admit, like, you know what, I messed up. Like, you know, um, And I do feel like a lot of people who got really sucked into this thing, if they were to be honest with themselves and be like, I got into this thing because it made me feel important or whatever, or like I kind of fell for it and I got scammed. I actually think that's kind of the start of how there could be like a path back. Is like, I actually think people are fairly forget. I mean, I know we're in like an age and time where, people, get like, a fury and rage against them if they commit a wrong. But I do think, in that scenario where like, if somebody was just scammed and they just got sucked in and got, um, like indoctrinated and stuff like that, I think there's got to be a path back. And I do think it starts with, it's got to just start with like just acknowledging like, hey, I messed up, like it's weird how people tend to be pretty forgiving of some stuff, but depending, because yeah, Chris points out, there's definitely a line. But I am also such a political junkie and nerd that when I saw those mittens that went all viral online, I emailed the lady who made them. And unfortunately, like right after I emailed her, she like posted on Twitter, like, I'm all sold out. There's no more mittens. It's like, darn it, I want some Bernie mittens. But it was cool. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I thought that was a pretty rad thing. Mittens are pretty rad too. So let's see here. Okay, I am almost done with this panel. At this point, I'm going to take a very quick break to use the restroom. Well, not really, just get some water and stuff. And then I will be right back. So I'm going to keep the stream going. And I'll be back shortly to join you guys. But it's kind of a fun art night. So here's what I got so far. Let me kind of see if I can. It's hard to figure out how to navigate that. But yeah, so we've got a little bit done. We'll get more done shortly. So I will be right back. All right. Whew. One other thing. All right. So I am back with a bang. And to finish off, I basically just have to get probably 3 panels finished before I am allowed to sleep. Hopefully you guys are finding this entertaining or interesting. And if you're watching this afterwards, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know if you want more of these. I think whether you want them or not, I might be doing them because it's just a good way to keep accountable, do a little hangout. And I'm cracking open a Barto from Bravery, which Chris, like, if you're still there, after quarantine, buddy, we got to go to Bravery in the AV. It's actually a pretty amazing microbrewery that I like quite a bit. And because of COVID, they're doing like these crazy let's see here. It's like a crowler for like 50% off. So if you guys live in the AV or anything like that, just go pick up some crowlers. It's like $30. You get like 4 of them. It's pretty awesome. I like that. I was impressed how quickly that meme took off. People made cross stitch actual paintings and sculptures. Yeah, dude. Just some of the funniest ones I've seen. One of my favorites was like Bernie in a wrestling match. They like photoshopped him into a like WWF match where Bernie's kind of posed like this. He's got like a head like in his arm, like he's doing like a headlock, and it's pretty awesome. Sweet. Chris is joining, having a blonde ale. Nicely done, sir. Nicely done. But yeah, it's weird. I've found that I'm not like a heavy drinker, but I do drink beer more often during like this season, like around December through March. There's just something about like this season where beer just tastes excellent. So let's see here. Okay. Ooh, I've got another way to break the panel that I think will be interesting. It's funny, like some of these panel tricks are not like super revolutionary, but anytime I think of a paneling device that or a unique, at least unique to me, paneling device that I can kind of bring in to my comics, I like to play with it. No way. Chris photoshopped Bernie into an old Comic-Con setup. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Yeah. I saw Gary Hodges too, who's cool. He watches a lot of the streams that like the Artcasters and stuff like that. But he also does this comic called Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, which is like so good, and it's crazy too because his output is really inspiring. Has been really inspiring to me. But anyhow, like yeah, he did the same where he had Bernie in Artist Alley. It is great. I don't know. There's something great about Bernie. Just the fact that like the art of there's a book out there called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, and it's like a almost like a management and leadership advice type book, like self-helpy kind of thing. And I think that's one of the things people like about Bernie is like he's like I think that's one of the things people like about Trump too. But I feel like he's like the polar end of the spectrum where it's like you have like Trump who doesn't give a fuck, but like he it's just like really just says terrible things and like does terrible things, and it's all like kind of evil narcissism and stuff. And with Bernie, it's like he doesn't seem to give a crap what anyone thinks, but it's like out of love and like a sense of justice and stuff that he kind of gets in his like I don't give a crap kind of thing. But I think there's something remarkable about that is appealing to people, and that's definitely appealing to me. So that's going to be my break, right? Where it's like, oh, geez, we can't even see this on the screen. Let me pull it up a little bit. So that's my new idea is like, I'll divide the panel with that, that phone thing. So see if that works. Let's see. Okay. Okay, this needs to be a dot, dot, dot. Bernie is blunt, honesty, but also with actual platforms. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah. It's funny, like it's not like a big one, but but it's like I feel pretty good about it. We'll see how it fills out. So we got to do. So, I'm going to talk about rowing machines because it's like that Fugazi and Chris Ware. If anybody knows me, they'll know like I'm never going to shut up about Fugazi. They're the best band ever. And I'll always talk about Chris Ware because he's the best cartoonist ever. And I'm all about the rowing machine for some reason lately. So I got this like water rower. And prior to that, I was using like one of those rowing machines that's like an exercise band. And it kind of had tension, but switching to like the water rowers, just like a game changer. It's like really intense and cool and kind of feels like you're actually rowing in water. But anyhow, so I've been, pretty much like religiously, like every other day doing rowing machine and then free weights. And then when I switched to the water rower, it was like I had to stop the free weights for like a week because it was just like a million times more intense. And I'm not like an athletic dude. So anyhow, but what I did today when I was rowing was I put on like a video of people rowing in water like a nerd, and I just put them on YouTube, and I was in the zone. I was like, I am gonna get to that other side of the shore, and it's just like on my little phone screen, just like just pulling this thing like I'm gonna get there. And yeah, but there's something really weird, and I think it's kind of similar to comics in the sense of it's like you get to this halfway point when you're rowing. Like, for me right now, I'm just trying to kind of do a minimum of a mile, and it's like that half mile point where you're like halfway where you start feeling it and your heart feels it, and like your breath like suddenly like you're doing all your like measured exercise breaths, like, okay, I'm going to breathe in now, breathe out. Like, yeah, I got this. And then it's like that halfway point where you're like, I don't got this. Like, this is terrible. But there's something cool about like overcoming that, like, and just kind of pushing and finally getting to that end part where you're like, I don't know, there's something really valuable about that, that I've been like really digging. And I feel like I really missed out on that in college. Because I was like a scrawny like guy who had no interest in any exercise at all. And there is something really cool about it, and it kind of builds discipline, I think, which is good for like accomplishing things, like anything in life, I say while I drink a crowler. And kind of get rid of all the work I did. Okay, let's see here. Kill me. That says, okay. So then I'm on this part. Okay. So I'm kind of stoked about knowing how to do this this whole like streaming thing. Like I'm pretty excited about it, and there's things that like my friend Corey is just like a genius with this crap. And so it's like there are things he can do in StreamYard, not StreamYard, but OBS that like it's just amazing. Like using all these little tricks and stuff where he can have like moving animations and stuff like that. But I was just pumped to have like a reasonable stream, going on. Also grabbed. Okay. So yeah, this whole comic has been just like this weird practice in vulnerability, but I'm pretty happy with that. So I feel like the result was pretty good, but it's made for some really awkward interviews and stuff. When I've done like I kind of mentioned at the top of this stream, I really need to up my game on sending out press releases and stuff because I was getting some traction and then I just kind of dropped the ball because it's like balancing that and this and the day job and all that stuff. All excuses, but it's made for like really interesting interviews because it's a weird thing to just kind of start off an interview where it's like you literally have to talk about like one of the most vulnerable things you could ever broach just right off the gate. And so it's like it's pretty interesting. What is Peloton? Watching vids while you row. Peloton. Is that like or is that like one of the big I don't know what Peloton is. You gotta let me know. But yeah, watching videos while doing that was fun. But yeah, it's been interesting doing these interviews where it's like it has to start off like at the most vulnerable point, and I've realized like it's kind of nice, and I'm thankful I did that with the comic, because like one of my favorite things in the world has always been fairly vulnerable conversations. Like I tend to want to get into the meat of like what people like and what do they think beauty is, and like what the purpose of an overly fancy workout bike. Yeah, that's what I could kind of see that because I do know the water rower I got like 10 years ago, like water rowers would never have been something I could afford because they're all like 10 grand, and that's nowhere near what I spent on this one. But so I got like the bottom of the line, a reasonable, like decent water rower. So it's good. It's like a huge step up from the crappy, like, tension band one that I was using before. But it's like, I saw like pretty much the same exact model for sale for like, the one I got was in the hundreds, right? And this one was in the thousands, and it was literally the same thing, but with like a big LCD screen. I was like, so you're paying like, I don't know. It was baffling to me. So it's like, do people really want to spend, like $1,000 to get the same workout with like a big screen built into the machine that's going to break? I don't know. It just seemed weird. Chris was talking about all his vulnerable stories are masked under fantasy and robots. I actually think that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. Yeah, like so like yeah, I mean it's crazy. People spend a lot on these things, and I kind of understand it because it's like I spent a couple hundred on the one I have now, but it's partially because I really liked the cheap exercise band one, and I used it so much it just snapped, like so it's like of course I'm gonna uh like upgrade and get like a better model. So maybe they're just me in the future. Like maybe 10 years from now I'm gonna be like I have to get that crazy super deluxe boat. I don't know. But I like what you were mentioning, Chris, though, about like vulnerable stories masked under fantasy and robots, because I actually think like we're all telling vulnerable stories, like like, and actually sometimes you can get to the heart of things with like fantasy and robots, like on a level that I don't know if like autobio can even touch. Like I always think of like The Road, right? Like the story of The Road is like it's so dark and so depressing, and it hits these points that like if it weren't like an apocalyptic story, I don't know if it would be able to hit the emotional points that it hits. Or like Lord of the Rings, right? When Gandalf talks about I'm going to misquote it, but it's like the we're living in uncertain times, and you basically don't get to choose the time that you're born into. All you can choose is to decide to do what you can with the time that's given to you. And it's like that whole speech that Gandalf gives is like one of the most poignant things I remember in like 8th grade when I was going through my fantasy kick, and I finally read Lord of the Rings, and reading that and just being like moved beyond anything I'd read, by like Salinger or, like it's just different chords, but I do feel like getting your fantasy out, like with vulnerability in it, is like it can actually hit chords that I think a lot of just straight vulnerability can't. So I think that's cool. Okay, so let's see here. Okay. I am trying to get away from floating heads, so I'm thinking, okay, this one's going to be, yeah, there we go. Dude, yeah, Chris, totally true. Yeah. The yeah, this whole year, man. This whole year I feel like makes that fantasy story like way less fantasy. It's interesting. I feel like one thing that prepped me, and this is where I'm gonna like potentially get a little political, but here's the thing: this is my stream, so I can get as political as I want. But I kind of feel like with the times we're going through, it's like I remember about trying to remember when. I think it was about a year ago, where I just felt like I need to read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, because some stuff's just feeling really familiar and creepy. And I feel like actually so I reread it and I felt like, what am I doing? Is this like doom scrolling kind of thing? Like it's a dark book. It's heavy to go over. It just gets into the rise and fall of the Reich, like that, of Hitler. And I remember like reading through it and just being like, maybe I'm being over dramatic, but like there's just so many parallels and stuff. And thinking, no, like constantly like kind of second guessing my own gut instinct telling me like this was a reflection of stuff that had happened in history before and could potentially go down that road. And then finally I was like by the time there was a coup, I was just like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like it didn't like shock me. It saddened me, but it didn't shock me because in a weird way, like just by reading through that history, I was like, okay, I kind of see where this crap leads. Like, so yeah, don't know where that came from, but I think it's kind of equivalent, like where I think there's a value in truth, and I think if you're telling truth through like fiction or if you're telling truth through nonfiction, I think the point is like there's something about being true that has value, and I think the second truth kind of gets kicked to the curb, like you end up in really kind of dangerous situations. I don't know, but I do know like it's been a rough year, I think, for most people. That's actually one thing that's helped me throughout this year too, is like just realizing like as tough as it's been, it's like like some really good things have happened this year for me and for my wife and kid and stuff. And so like it's been hard and harrowing, and we've definitely had challenges, but it's like I've been shocked that like I have so many friends who've like managed to get through. Oh, dude, good point, Chris. Even the silliest looking fiction can hit well if it's saying something honest. Yeah, right. I mean, so I think that like that's actually dead on, right? Like we're, and I think in a weird way, by being silly, you open doors that would otherwise be closed. Like Pixar, I think more than any filmmaker, like those are movies that like I don't tend to like bawl at movies, but whenever I watch a Pixar film, I'm pretty much prepped to like start crying for sure. And it's yeah, so it and I think it's partially because they like kind of soften you up through like it's kind of equivalent to like okay, so one of the reasons in Two Stories I did like the first book, Two Stories, it alternates between styles, right? So there's basically like a style that's like a childhood style, and there's a style that's like more realistic. And the realistic style kind of deals with like heavy stuff, like issues of suicide, panic disorder, and sort of like real kind of adult crises. And then the sillier style that's more kind of like Family Circus or something like that, deals with like childhood trauma that's not quite as serious, and and so it's a lot sillier and more lighthearted. But one of the main reasons I even threw that in was you kind of can't just beat people over the head with like depressing stuff as a storyteller. You have to give areas of rest and lightness, and so it's kind of like in Hamlet when they put like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in. Like the whole function of those characters is to bring some levity to this like super heavy plot, you know? But yeah, so Chris was saying some good points last year despite it all. Yeah, that's the part that's baffled me about 2020 is if a year ago, like a year ago, somebody said, hey, dude, this is going to happen in like a month. And I had to predict like how all my friends and family and people nearest to me would respond to this insane crisis. I would have predicted worse. I would have, especially for me. And so what's been really interesting, and also for just friends and stuff, and what's been interesting is seeing like how just badass and like resilient people I know are. Because like most people I know are kind of kicking and getting through, and it's just kind of amazing and cool to see like the human spirit like triumph, you know. I don't know, maybe it's nerdy. This is good though, Chris. If you're ever up past after COVID, we got to do bravery. So once again, I'm trying to kind of avoid floating heads. I'm kind of taking a different tack. This. And then my thought is, you know, this whole time, she's kind of overhearing all this like really disturbing stuff on the phone. And so I'm trying to kind of have her have these sort of faces of shock. Yeah, I hear you on that, Chris. The roaring 20s. I think there's a case to be made for that. I was thinking about that too with like I mean, there are some really crappy things about releasing a book in 2020, you know, where it's like you have a ton of the like most of your tools that you have as an indie creator are just kind of annihilated. But one thing that's cool is I was thinking about it and like, you know, I'm not going to include myself in this, but it's like, you know, if you think about the roaring 20s, not just like the parties and like people hanging out and stuff, just think about all the excellent art that was made during the Depression. Like there's so much like great books and literature that were created around that time. And I think we're in that time. I think so. And I think like, I think there's a lot of people right now who are really actively, like they're, you know, the thing that's neat about when people get isolated and have to kind of live with themselves for a bit is you ask questions, you know, like, and a lot of these questions are like questions artists ask ourselves all the time, you know, where it's like you like we constantly are thinking about like what's purpose, like what's truth, like what like why am I working doing this thing, or is it worth it to do this gig when I could work on my own thing, or whatever it is that we're wondering. It's like we're constantly thinking about like value and creating stuff. But what's interesting about like isolation is it really forces that conversation for some people who maybe haven't had it. And so I just imagine like all the writers who are just begging for time, and they have like a great novel and they're just like, I need time, if only I had time. And then maybe they're stuck at home working from home, and like they have all the time in the world, and now it's like now they're working on the great American novel. It's possible. I'm just saying, like, I think we're gonna have a real resurgence in like some pretty crazy cool, like reflective, thoughtful art, and then fun art too. Plus the best thing about 2020 has been The Mandalorian. I mean, well, to me, like one of the best entertainment things is like Mandalorian is it's just beyond awesome. So, this is a Seattle shirt. Can't forget that. Okay, so I'm almost at 2 hours, and I am sticking with this because I need to finish this freaking page. That's my goal. I may not get there, but it's like I was talking about with like the water rower, where it's like you get kind of halfway through, and I was like, well, I'm halfway there. The other reason I want to finish this is I usually try to finish one page a day, and I've had to kind of abandon some of that ambition because there's just nights where like I don't have like more than an hour to work on comics. And so so yesterday was one of those days where I only had like about a half hour. So I got like 3 panels done and then was like, I'm calling it. It wasn't a half hour, it was an hour. And so now it's like I feel like I owe a page. I have to at least finish a page. So here I'm just laying out some kind of lighting and atmosphere. I find it helpful to like block in the lighting a little bit on the thumbnail stage because it's going to save me a lot of time when it comes to like even if I shoot photo reference, it gives me an idea of like how to set up the lighting. And then when it comes to rendering it and drawing it and stuff, it's like it helps me set up the lighting. So having like a rough idea of that is helpful too. All right. So I got to get this next panel done. Try to avoid. Yeah. So something else, I'm just going to ramble right now, but it's something else that's been on my mind that I think is kind of rampant lately in discourse. Good point, Chris. You can get some cool shapes with lighting. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so something that's been on my mind lately too is the idea of falsifiability. And it's kind of a weird one, but it's like um I think that's kind of the problem with a lot of what like proliferates um like for kind of like fake news, and I mean real fake news, not like Trump's, you know, fake news tag, but like actual misinformation. I think um I think people have an issue with uh and not all people, but I think like it's an easy trick to kind of make a wild claim with no backing, um and then just kind of be like, well, prove me wrong. Like it's an easy kind of trick to do, where it's like if I claim I've got a Sasquatch living in my backyard, like Bigfoot hangs out back there. And yeah, I mean, like I've seen him. He lives in my shed. Like he's awesome. If I make that claim, like most people in their right mind would be like, well, dude, like prove it. Like does Bigfoot really live in your backyard? And it's like the easiest response in the world to like a crazy claim is just to go like, yeah, well, you can't prove he isn't. Like it's like it's a so it's falsifiability. Like basically, like for a claim to have any kind of relevance or justification, it should have the ability to be able to be proven false, right? Like generally true claims, if there was something, there's usually something that could come out that could prove them false, right? So something that's not falsifiable is also not provable. Like so anyhow, so that kind of, I've been thinking about that lately too. Yeah, toss back that burden of proof. That's right, Chris. So that's something I've been thinking about. Where I've realized like there's a lot of that going around, where like people read like an article on a GeoCities site with like an eagle on it that says like freedom site, and they're like, that's got to be true. Nobody can prove that wrong. And it's just one of those things where I think there needs to be like a return to like a semblance of a burden of proof. But that's one of my big flaws as a human being, is I tend to um, kind of assume most people are rational actors. And so I'm like, I mean, of course people understand like burden of proof and like the idea that you can make any crazy claim and go, hey, prove me wrong. Like, and that's not necessarily where everyone's at, but I do think if people could kind of like think more about that, like falsifiability, we might have a better landscape, I don't know. All right. More comic and comic geddon. That was a terrible, terrible pun. Was that even a pun? I think that was a pun. And the fact. Dang. So right now, I have this character who is laying down the law. Like literally laying out the law in the story. All right, here we go. Boom. Okay. I got that worked out. Now I got to figure out how to do. So let me try to think about, okay, how can I make this guy? Okay. I'm trying to think of a way to kind of, like I said, I wanted that. I'll kind of zoom in on it, but it's like I wanted this to be my last talking head because, when you're doing comics, it's like when you have too many just like close-ups of heads, it can be really irritating to follow for the reader. And it's kind of, there's a nickname for it in comics called talking heads, which Chris already knows. And then apparently there's also a band called the Talking Heads, which started out pretty awesome. Anyhow, so my goal was to try to avoid talking heads and also to kind of try to think of a way like after that. 'Cause sometimes talking heads are necessary, but you don't want to overdo it with talking heads. So I'm thinking of a solution, and I think I've got it. And like I said at the top of this too, like if anybody's ever new to comics and you're struggling with ways to kind of avoid a talking head kind of sequence, yeah, dude, Chris just totally called me on my trick. That's one of my tricks. Just talk with your hands, Italian style. Yeah, I totally use, as a person, I talk with my hands anyway. But when I'm doing comics, I always try to emote with the hands of the character because it's just a tool you have to do, Although now I kind of want to see Chris do a cartoon of like, I don't know. I was trying to think of like a talk to the hand kind of thing, but like it's an Italian style talk to the hand. I don't know. I don't know how that works out. So here's another interesting little tidbit that I'm going to ramble about because why not? It's 12:15, and I got comics to finish. So my son was like super into Super Mario Brothers, and my sister was a librarian for a little bit, and when she was a librarian, she used to bring library books from her school that she worked at to her nephews and nieces, like a little library drop off kind of thing. She brought like the Super Mario comic. It's like a graphic novel, like Super Mario Brothers. And my son like fell in love with it so much that when we had to return it to the library, we had to like find this thing on like Amazon, and it was the weirdest comic. But it's interesting because it's a comic that was made for Nintendo Power and then collected as a graphic novel, and it is full of all kinds of like wonderful things. And I literally have to read it to my son like maybe once every 5 days before he goes to bed. And the thing that sticks in my head about it is when the Koopa Troopas walk around, they make the sound effect pitta patta, pitta patta. And I was like, that's a pretty interesting walking sound effect, pitta patta. Yeah, so anyhow. It's pretty wacky though. It's like, for There's a King Koopa character. I mean, you guys know King Koopa if you grew up around the same time as I did. He's the big villain. But because this was like a comic made in like the early to mid 90s, like Koopa has a Koopa rap where he raps his evil plot to kidnap the princess. And it is terrible, but kind of awesome. So, anyhow, that's another thing that's running through my head today is Mario Brothers comics when I'm trying to think. Oh, yes. Okay, there we go. All right. Got it. I do like the talking with your hands thing, so I'm going to do that. Okay, here we go. Boop, 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 boop. All right. So the stream has been going for 2 hours and 6 minutes. And so anyone who's kind of hanging, yeah, that's true, Chris. Mario, like I couldn't believe it that Mario has stayed relevant for kids. Yeah, it's I think it's because those games. I mean, I know for my son, I bought like an NES emulator a couple years ago. It was like the second he saw um, Super Mario 3, initially it was like awesome to him. And then within like an instant, he had found like all these YouTube kids tutorials about like the newer games that I have no interest in and don't play. But yeah, it's like there's something about Mario that just like transcends time and space. That was some like lightning in a bottle. Like, you know, I don't know why this is talking about cropping. I'm not interested in cropping. Okay. But yeah, like there's something like about it. And I kind of get it because like when when I was younger, like that was the game. Like that was I think yeah, I mean, that was like the game that I that like I couldn't stop playing. There's another game that's on the NES that I'm really fascinated with, and I haven't really heard much about. I should maybe look it up and see if there's like, I bet there's like a walkthrough on YouTube of this game because there's got to be people who remember it. But it was called Deja Vu on Nintendo, and it was this game where you wake up like you're a detective. It was definitely text based, kind of RPG style game. You wake up in a bathroom stall, and you're this detective, and you have to figure out like your identity because you have deja vu. Well, not deja vu. You've forgotten who you are, and then as you're going through this, you start getting these moments of deja vu, like as you're trying to solve this mystery, walking around, trying to figure out who you are. You start putting pieces together and having deja vu as you're experiencing this whole thing. So anyhow, I am curious to look into that. And I might even do that when I finish this page, this stinky page that takes so long. So like I said, I've mentioned this to people too. It's like, I am not a fast cartoonist. And so, doing thumbnails that might take, 30 minutes for some artists, like takes me 2 hours. And his hand's backwards, but whatever, it's rough. So, pop that up for you guys to see that nice backwards hand. I'm going to correct that backwards hand. But yeah, I was really proud and stoked that, like, he's not as Ben's not as into Mario as he was, but he still was like really into Mario. And I remember when he started getting into it, there was a point where I was just like, yeah, this is awesome. Kind of like, now, like, my son like digs watching Clone Wars, and I'm like, yes, learn of the Force, learn of how awesome this is, because I just think it's really important for him to become a Star Wars geek. He must. Okay. So, getting closer. I have one panel left. Yes. I'm a little jealous of Corey, though. He's gotten his kid into Star Wars a lot faster than me, and his son, Maddox, calls the Mandalorian helmet guy, and I just think that's amazing. So he's managed to crack the code a little earlier. But my son and I get in like good lightsaber battles, and he is pretty interested. And it was literally the Clone Wars cartoons that cracked the code for him. So, recommendation to anyone with young children, Clone Wars. And I have been like gradually going through the old Clone Wars stuff, like season 4 or something. It's really hard to. I love that we're in an era, like, because we grew up. I think for people like Chris, who's in the chats and hanging out, and I think we're around the same age where it's like we kind of had like Star Wars drought. like most of our childhood was like drought. Like we had Empire, like pretty much when I was born, and then you had Jedi, and then just drought, and like toys were hard to get, and it just kind of like fizzled out. And I mean, you had like the Christmas special and like this weird Ewok cartoon and stuff, but like by all means, by the time I was like a teenager, like there wasn't a lot of Star Wars stuff. Yeah, this is a good point. The severe drought, there was nothing. So we just had things like Dark Horse had this really cool series called Dark Empire. And that was like, holy crap, like it's Star Wars and it's officially licensed. And then we had some books. Dude, Chris, good point. Make your own Star Wars toys out of wood. Yes. And I remember, this just shows you how dumb I was as a kid. But I remember I really wanted Star Wars toys. And my family bought me a Star Wars toy, and I was really excited. It was like wrapped, and I opened it up, and I was heartbroken because it was a sand person. Like I wanted like Luke or Darth Vader, And I just got mad because it was like, no. But in retrospect, that's a pretty badass figure I got, you know? Yeah. Anyhow, dude, Chris, I would have known who you were. Um, you know, this is one thing I need to reinvest in my long box because I have like these long boxes that I've had since I was like a kid, and so they're all torched and the comics in them are still good, but they're all in the closet. And the whole Dark Empire series I have, it's just like I wouldn't mind rereading it, you know, because I remember that being such a just cool, I don't know, cool series. And I think, remind me, maybe Chris, maybe you remember this, but I think the plot was like Luke goes bad, so like Leia has to force up. I don't know. But the covers were just beautiful. I mean, it was just a cool comic. It was really well done. And I remember that came out about the same time. That came out around the same time as like the earliest cartoon books versions of Bone, because what happened was, because I grew up in the Antelope Valley, we would drive to LA every once in a while, like visit my brother, who I'm actually drawing in these panels, because he lived in Los Angeles because he was, you know, an LAPD officer. And so we'd go up to visit him. Every time we'd go up, I would force them to stop at this place called the Fantastic Store. And it was a comic book shop in LA that had like The Thing on it. And I think it became like a music shop. And then like later on, I don't even know if it exists anymore. But so Dark Empire, like, because the local comic shops here never had it and they never had Bone, I would, every time we went to LA, I would force my family to stop by like the Fantastic Store and Golden Apple, so that I could like peruse and see if I could get Dark Empire and Bone. And like, so, and that was about the time where Bone was being put out as graphic novel collections, but it was through cartoon books. And so that's like, I remember, anyhow, my point is, I used to pick up Bone and Dark Empire issues because the runs came out around the same time. So, yeah. Oh, was that Dave Dorman? Yeah, that is just beautiful, beautiful art, man. I feel like there was something with the Emperor in that storyline too. I need to reread them. I just got to pull them out of the garage and rock it. There's a lot of like floppies that I haven't read in a long time. Like I wouldn't mind rereading Spawn too. Like I haven't reread those issues in years, you know? So anyhow, okay. So last panel, and then I will have a page that I can then post to Facebook, and I can say I finished day 22 of the 100 Days of Making Comics. I did not mention at the top what the 100 Days of Making Comics is. So the 100 Days of Making Comics, my buddy Kevin Cross. Oh, dude, okay. Chris and I are like bonding over how hard those issues were. Yeah. Dude, they were hard to find. Yeah. I remember being really bummed because I ended up getting second editions of like number 3 and 4 or something. And I was like, I want those first editions, which is weird because I didn't even know what the value was of that. But I still read them. I never was a guy who like bought comics that I didn't like rip open and read. Like, you know, yeah, that last issue, I remember That thing like sold like hotcakes, dude. Like, yeah. And then Bone, I had no trouble following those graphic novels, and then Jeff Smith like flipped the script. So it's like I had all these cartoon books, like graphic novels, I'm following it along, and then suddenly he's like, I'm going through Image, and then we had to wait like like way longer for like the later installments because they were through Image. But I think he got more money for that, which is much better. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other comics I was like super into around the time of like Dark Empire, Bone. I'm trying to think what else was going on around that time, comic wise, because I feel like that predates Spawn, but maybe not. But I do think that like predated like the Image boom. But Dark Empire is a really good example of like why it's really cool. Chris in the chats, like why that it's cool that you worked for Dark Horse. Like that was a Dark Horse book. If like, you know, if Chris Kawagua, like as a child, knew that he would grow up and actually have his name in some Dark Horse books, like that's pretty badass, man. Okay. Let's see here. I'd like to reread it because I'm trying to remember all the plot twists and stuff, you know. That's another thing that I'm excited about with the stream format is like, you know, potentially doing a show where, you know, there's like more of a formal critique of comics that have, you know, been done and stuff that I've read that influenced me. So it would also be like a nice excuse to take something like Dark Empire and Rocket. But yeah, Chris, like Dark Horse was the Star Wars property for a really long period of time because Marvel somehow lost that license. So like they had those 80s comics, and then I don't know how it got to Dark Horse, but like Dark Horse owned Star Wars for a really long period of time. And I think that was kind of it for Star. Like there wasn't a lot. So to be in like a day and age where I'm like, I haven't even seen all of the Clone Wars episodes. I think that's amazing. Like it's kind of cool. There's so much. Yeah, dude. Yes. Boba Fett coming back, Force projection Luke. Yeah. Dude. But I have to say, like the Mando thing, I do feel like they're hitting a chord that's just it's just like perfect. But I also feel like what I'd like to see, you know, because it's run by Disney as well now, is like I'd like to see Marvel start doing like X-Men as a TV show. Because I feel like even with Mandalorian, like it's benefited by the ability to have storylines that don't have to crunch everything into like one uh, spot. Like it allows it to breathe and have like more pacing and development, you know? Okay. So let's see here. Last panel. Okay. Okay. This one is going to be a little bit more of a. Okay. Let's try. Okay. 2 hours and 25 minutes in. And that should give you hopefully a taste of how slow of an artist I am. But I'm almost done with this thumbnail, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think I need this to be looking down, but I appreciate being able to do this, and I think I'm going to do these streams. So it might not be the most exciting thing for a lot of people, but I do think it's a way to kind of show the process and hopefully like answer any questions people have, and then also just like chat and hang out and potentially like have a beer or talk while having to do this stuff, self-imposed deadlines and stuff. So let's see how this goes and if I can last. It is now like midnight, and I am close to done with day 22 of the 100 Days of Making Comics. Oh yeah, so I don't know if I explained that. So 100 Days of Making Comics, my buddy Kevin Cross started this thing because he wanted to make comics on top of doing client work. And sometimes it's really hard to make time to make comics and catch yourself kind of making art for other people. The dream of making comics, and that dream might just disappear because it's comics take time. So Kevin came up with this idea of spending 30 minutes a day at minimum. And in this case, obviously, like, I'm not just spending 30 minutes a day, but you should at minimum, if you want to do the 100 days, like spend 30 minutes working on your comic for 100 days, and that can help you build a habit to get your comic books done. And I have done it twice. I feel like I'm kind of unofficially doing it all the time. But when my buddy Scott Cirkland decided he was going to do the 100 days, I decided I would do the 100 days and join him. So anyhow, that's why I'm doing the 100 days. But regardless, I got to do comics anyway. I basically need to try to finish this book in about a year and a half. So it will, I'm going to spend what it takes. Okay, there was text. And this is a really dull face and a huge head, so I think I'm going to try adapting that a little bit. There we go. I need this to have like a... I agree with the idea of having some talking hands. So, so basically my thought on this, now that we're getting close to the end of the stream, is I'm going to do this every time I work on comics. And I'm curious what the thoughts are on that. And I kind of think, regardless of the thoughts, it's kind of my stream, so it'll be what it is. But I'm kind of curious if the format could change or, whatever. I just kind of think as long as we're working on comics, we might as well all hang out. So let's see here. Should I do? Okay, there's just one line. So then what should? Okay, here we go. But it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of reminisce and talk about things from like politics to, like going to the Fantastic store in Hollywood to just like, like political upheaval and all sorts of stuff. Like it's been a fun kind of hangout. And I also encourage people who, might be watching this after the fact, if you're curious about who this like Chris guy is who showed up in the chats, you should check out Chris Caligula, his artwork. It's pretty incredible and inspiring and cool, and yeah, just like good solid work. I also, as I'm zooming out of this, I gotta zoom in so I can show you guys the last panel, and I also need to add some shading. It's about to wrap. So let's see. Ooh, okay. So very quick little shading nonsense to give some form and some semblance of lighting. And here we go. This is going to have some shadow there. There would be a door somewhere. So basically, point being, like, anybody who's watched this long, it's much appreciated, and I've enjoyed the conversation. And I hope you guys like the new stream format, and I will be wrapping it because I managed to get this finished. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to probably post it on Instagram or whatever. So anyhow, you have joined my first live stream of just doing comics, and I'm imagining this might be like a nightly thing. And yeah, so I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who joined, and I will see you guys next week. Oh, before I go, if you have made it this far, buy this book. Buy this book. It took a long time. It's pretty beautifully illustrated, if I don't say so myself. And it varies in style. It's a story about faith and mental illness that's autobiographical and took quite a few years to finish. So if you can, pick up a copy of 2 stories. There's a link in the show notes. And I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow. So let me know what you think of the stream in the comments section, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.